What's up, everyone? So today I am going to be doing a ranking of the story segments from Creepshow 1 and 2 and Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. So I decided to do this because a good friend of mine, Austin, over at the channel Franchise Horror Reviews, recently did a review of all of these movies and a ranking of the story segments. I'll put a link to his channel down in the description below. And I have seen all of these movies a long time ago, back in my teen years, and I recently rewatched them. And these movies are just a lot of fun. I really enjoy these, and I decided I want to do a ranking of my own of these, ranking all of the story segments. Now, the reason I'm including Tales from the Dark Side in this ranking is because I believe it's kind of considered like the unofficial Creepshow 3. It's very, very similar to the first couple of Creepshow movies. And there was a Creepshow 3 that was released, and that is not even really considered, I guess, Creepshow from what I've seen and heard of it, and I've heard that it's just absolutely terrible, so I have not watched that one. I do not plan on watching it. That movie, it has the same title, it's technically part of the same franchise, but it has nothing to do with the original creators, George Romero and Stephen King, so I probably will never watch that one. So instead, I'm just have Tales from the Dark Side here as like the unofficial Creepshow 3. So yeah, let's talk about these three movies a little bit and go in order from least favorite to favorite of all the story segments here. So, starting, and I have a list here with me too in case I forget where I'm at, which I probably will do. Alright, so starting with my least favorite, and there's a total of 11 story segments here. There's 5 in the first Creepshow film, and then 3 story segments each in Creepshow 2 and Tales from the Dark Side. So, starting with my least favorite story segment from the Creepshow franchise is from the very first Creepshow film, and is also the very first story segment, and that is Father's Day. Now, Father's Day is essentially a really basic revenge story. I really don't have a lot to say about it. It's about this really grumpy old guy. His family doesn't like him at all, and he's constantly yelling at them and demanding for things. It's his birthday. He wants his birthday cake. That's like the whole thing with this story. And then one of his family members ends up killing him. And I guess I'm going to be giving some spoilers away here for some of these stories. So spoiler alert, I guess. He comes back from the grave and takes revenge on his family. That's basically what happens. It's a very simple story. There's not a lot to it. I feel like this franchise definitely opens up with kind of a weak story, in my opinion. I just never really cared for this one. I wouldn't say it's bad. Don't hate it or anything. I wouldn't say any of the segments in these movies are outright bad. I would give this one probably like a 2 out of 5 stars. It's just there's not a lot to it. So yeah, Father's Day comes in at number 11 for me. Coming in at number 10 is Hitchhiker from Creepshow 2. Now, this is one that is also just kind of a simple revenge story. That's kind of the theme of the story segments in this movie, is a lot of them are based around revenge, justice, that kind of thing. But some of them just don't execute the idea very well. It just takes the theme in its most basic concept and just runs with it. And Hitchhiker also kind of does this, I think. Yeah, it's basically about this girl who runs over this guy, and instead of stopping to help, or she doesn't run over him, I think she hits him with her car. And instead of stopping to help her to check to see if he's okay, she just drives off and leaves him be. And then this guy comes back to haunt her and is following her around. And that's pretty much what happens in The Hitchhiker. And this one is okay, I guess. There's some mild entertainment to be had with this one. It's just kind of cheesy and fun. And there's a little bit of gore and some cool makeup design with this guy that she hits. He basically turns into a zombie and is following her around. But again, it's just kind of basic. I don't have a lot to say about it. So yeah, this one is also like a 2 out of 5 stars for me. So yeah, The Hitchhiker, this is the last segment too, I believe, in Creepshow 2. Comes in at number 10 for me. Coming in at number 9 is Theyre Creeping Up on You from the first Creepshow film. And this is also the last segment I believe, yes, the last segment from the first Creepshow film. And this one, kind of going along the same route here. This one isn't so much of a revenge story. It's more of like a justice story, I guess. There's this really rich guy that lives in this apartment complex, and we don't really get to see it, but it's heavily implied that this guy's an asshole. There's a lady that calls him and is basically chewing him out for murdering her husband, and this guy, he's just a jerk. And he's also a germaphobe, a really like big germaphobe, and he's like scared of bugs and insects. And there's a cockroach infestation in his apartment. And the whole story takes place in this guy's apartment. And basically what happens is he starts seeing cockroaches run around, and he tries to kill them with like bug spray and things like that. And from there, it's pretty much just him battling these cockroaches, and they start to overrun him, and it gets out of control. In this story, again, it's just kind of simple. I feel like there's not a lot to be said about it. I don't think it's bad. I think this one's a little bit more enjoyable than the previous two. It's like a 2.5 out of 5 stars for me. The thing that I think I most like about this one is that it's got some nice body horror to it at the end with the cockroaches. There's some pretty gross stuff that happens. But unfortunately, that's really all that can be said for this one, in my opinion. Again, it's just kind of okay. So yeah, They're Creeping Up on You. The last segment from the first Creepshow film comes in at number 9 for me. Okay, coming in at number 8, we have, in Creepshow 2, the very first segment, Old Chief Woodenhead. In Old Chief Woodenhead, this one is, again, kind of like a revenge justice story. It's about these, I don't know, hoodlums, I guess, that not invade. They go into this guy's, like, country store, general store, I don't know, and basically rob the place, and they also kill the owner of the store. And there is this, I don't want to spoil this one because we're kind of getting into the stories that I kind of like now a little bit better, so I don't want to spoil it, but there is this, I don't know, thing, I guess, that gets revenge on them. We'll just say that. This one I enjoyed a little bit more because the bad guys were a bit more entertaining, as they were a bit over the top in their acting. It's a bit more dramatic. There's some more action to it. And then in the way that justice comes for them is a lot more interesting. We'll just say that. There's a little bit more violence involved. I kind of like this one. So yeah, we're not in the great territory yet, but I kind of like this one. It's like a 3 out of 5 stars for me. So yeah, Old Chief Woodenhead comes in at number, what am I at? I'm already forgetting what number I'm at. This was number 8. Okay. Moving on to number 7, we have, from Tales from the Dark Side, Lot 249. This is the very first segment from this movie. And in Lot 249, we basically have, again, kind of a revenge story. They pretty much all are, it seems like. And this one is about a mummy that comes to life, or that's a college kid basically reads these ancient, I don't know, writings or some kind of phrase that wakes up the mummy to come to life, and he uses it as a means to get revenge on these kids. And this one is just, it's fine. This is another one I don't really have a lot to say about. I just feel like there's not a lot to it. It's basically about this kid that wants revenge on these other kids, and he brings this mummy to life to attack them. There's a little bit of a twist here at the end. I do kind of like it. It is entertaining. I think the reason I just don't rate this one higher, or I like it a lot, is simply because it feels a bit drawn out, and there's not a lot of like gore to it or creativity or anything. It's just okay. 3 out of 5 stars for Lot 249. Okay, that was number 7. Now we are moving on to number 6. And this is where we're starting to get into the good story segments. In my opinion, from here on out, I pretty much like all of these to some degree or another. And these next 3 are also very close in my ratings. They're pretty much all like 3.5 to 4 stars. I had a hard time deciding which ones I liked more. They're all kind of about the same. But anyway, coming in at number 6 is The Raft from Creepshow 2. And this one is the second story segment in this collection. And this is one that I remember liking a lot more than I did from remembering when I watched it a long time ago. And it's still a good segment. I really like this story. It's basically about these teenagers who swim out to this raft, and there is this sort of black blob floating in the water. They make some comments that it might possibly be like an oil slick. And what happens is one of the teenagers like leans over the edge of the raft to like touch the oil slick, and the blob or whatever it is wraps around her arm, pulls her into the water, and like covers her, and it basically kills her and like sucks her down into the lake. And it's left ambiguous to what this blob is exactly. It never directly tells you. But essentially, these teenagers are stranded on this raft in the middle of the lake with nobody else around. And there's this blob just floating around the raft. And it just like kind of slowly picks them off one by one. And I'm not going to spoil the ending of this one because I think this is a really good story segment. I highly recommend this one. And I will say, though, I think the reason I don't like it quite as much as I used to is I recently finished Skeleton Crew by Stephen King, which has this story in it that this raft was based on. It's the same name. And I do think that the story is a lot better than the adaptation in this film. So in the story, there's a lot more substance to it. There's more gore. The characters are slightly more fleshed out. It's still a pretty short story. I think it's like maybe 15, I don't think it's no more than 20 pages, but there's just a little bit more substance to it. It's more bloody, more violent. There's some extended scenes in it, and it just, I enjoy the story a lot more than what they did with it in Creepshow 2. I think it's a lot better. The only big difference, I would say, between the two is that the endings are quite a bit different. The way that the story ends. I do like the way that it ends in the movie, but I feel like overall the short story is just so much more effective. So yeah, that was what kept me from rating The Raft higher. I still enjoy it in this movie. Definitely one of my favorite segments of this franchise. I just don't quite love it as much as I used to after reading the short story. I would recommend maybe reading the story and then watching the segment if you want to try that. But yeah, I don't know. The Raft comes in at number 6 for me. Okay, moving on to number 5. And again, these next couple segments are both about like 3.5, maybe 4 stars each as well. So coming in at number 5, we have Something to Tide You Over from the first Creepshow film. And this is, I believe, the 3rd segment in this movie. I'm pretty sure. So on Something to Tide You Over, again, we have another revenge justice story, kind of. This one is a bit reminiscent of like the plot used in Father's Day, but here it's used a lot more effectively, in my opinion. So we basically have this young couple. One of them is married and they're cheating on their spouse, and the spouse finds out, and he basically goes to great lengths to get revenge on them. What he does is pretty messed up, and it's kind of creative, and I like the method of revenge that he uses. It's a pretty cool idea. I really like this. And of course we get a twist ending that has like some supernatural stuff going on. And the twist ending in this one is a lot better and less cheesy than the one in Father's Day, in my opinion, even though it's of the same nature. It's almost identical to Father's Day, the twist that happens in that one, but I just feel like it's more effective in this one, and I enjoyed it a lot more. So yeah, Something to Tide You Over, like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It's good. It's the 3rd segment in Creepshow, in the first Creepshow film, and it comes in at my number 5 spot. Okay. Moving on. Oh, I'm putting the movie down, but my next spot is also from the same movie. All right, so number 4, we have The Lonesome Death of Jody Verrell. I think that's his name. So this one is the 2nd segment in this movie, and it features Stephen King himself as the protagonist. And it's also based on a short story by Stephen King that I have not read. And apparently, this short story is very obscure. You can't find it in any of his published short story collections. It was published, I can't even remember now. I believe my friend Austin, in his video talking about these movies and reviewing them, I think he explains it. I can't remember. Some magazine or some obscure collection you can find the story in. I can't remember what it is or what the name of it is. But yeah, I haven't read the short story, but I do like this story segment for sure. So in the Lonesome Death of Jody Varel, it basically takes place on this just kind of like in the middle of the nowhere, small town on some farmhouse. It's just one guy who discovers a meteor lands in his backyard. And he gets excited, he's curious about it, he wants to check it out. And this story is very, very reminiscent of The Color Out of Space by H.P. Lovecraft. I'm pretty sure Stephen King borrowed a little bit from that story, took some inspiration from it. And I mean, Stephen King has done that with a lot of his other stories as well. So it's not exactly a surprise. So the effects of this meteor start to take place, and there's some ambiguity behind it, exactly what the meteor is and what it's doing. But there's lots of weeds that start growing up, and grass and different strange looking plants. And it sort of infects our protagonist, and some strange things start happening to him. And I feel like this story segment is really, or the highlight of this one is really Stephen King's over the top performance in this one. It's bad and good at the same time. I don't know how to explain it. It's just really corny, but I enjoy it. It's pretty entertaining. So yeah, The Lonesome Death of Jody Varel. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about this one, but it's a good story segment. I think it comes in at number 4 for me. Okay, moving on to my top 3. Again, I'm putting the movie back, but my next one is also in this film. So, coming in at number 3, and these next 3 story segments are all like top tier for me. This one isn't quite 5 stars. I think it's like 4, maybe 4.5 out of 5 stars, and that is The Crate. And this is the second to the last story segment in this film, I believe. I'm pretty sure it's like the 4th one in here. So, The Crate is basically about this crate that has this monster living inside of it. I don't want to give it away, but yeah, it has this monster living inside of it. And we also have some themes in this story about revenge, justice. There's a lot of characters in this story segment, and none of them like each other, especially one couple. There's an older couple in this segment that really just hate each other, and they do not get along. The husband is like having daydreams and fantasies about killing his wife. And basically this one character discovers this crate in this, I don't even remember what it is, a school or warehouse or some kind of building. I think it's like a college or a school. I'm pretty sure. And he discovers this crate and opens it up and discovers this monster living inside of it. And I'll just say that I absolutely love the design of this creature. It's just so cool. I love the design of this creature. And basically what ensues from there is some carnage. There's a small body count in this story. Not a lot of deaths, but there's a decent little body count in here. We get some nice gore and makeup effects. And some of the themes, like revenge themes that you kind of see throughout these stories, also take place in here, and they try to use this monster to their advantage. And this one's just really entertaining. Yeah, like I said, I give it probably a 4 out of 5 stars. I think what keeps me from loving it and giving it a perfect rating is it does feel a little bit drawn out, and I think we could have gotten to see a little bit more of the monster than we did. We really only get like a few shots of him, like a few close-up shots. He kind of remains off screen for the most part. I would have liked to see a little bit more of him. And there is some nice gore and violence in the story, don't get me wrong, but I think I would have liked just a little bit more of it. Some of the character interactions and dialogue just go on for a little bit too long. There's a little bit too much build-up in this one. But overall, this is my 3rd favorite story segment in this franchise, and it is my favorite story segment in this first Creepshow film. So yeah, that's The Crate. Okay, moving on to my top 2 story segments. And these ones are both basically flawless for me, 5 out of 5 stars. And number 2 is The Cat from Hell. And this is the second story segment in Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. Now, The Cat from Hell is also a short story, or based on a short story by Stephen King. And unlike The Raft, and this might be surprising to some people, unlike The Raft, I think the film version of this is actually better than King's short story. So I originally read The Cat from Hell, actually way back. I first had to read it in one of my English college courses, I believe. And then I reread it a few years back in Stephen King's short story collection, Just After Sunset. And I find that the film version of it is actually better because, for one, there's a bit more action and violence and gore to it. It's just more campy and schlocky and kind of entertaining than the story was. The story, from what I remember, really only had like one moment of gore towards the end of it, and that's it. There's a lot more that happens in the film version. They take the idea and expand on it a little bit more. And there's also one moment that I remember the most from the story, not making any sense. It's just a little logical decision that's always kind of bothered me with the story, where I should probably explain what the story is about first, a little bit. I'm getting ahead of myself here. So in case you've never heard of The Cat from Hell, it's basically about this hitman that's hired to kill this evil cat. There's this rich guy that lives alone in this giant house. He's in a wheelchair, so he can't get around real well. And there's this cat that he deems to be evil and like supernatural or something. And this cat has supposedly killed off his other family members and his friends. And so he hires this hitman to kill his cat for him. And the hitman basically is like, whatever, I'll do it. He doesn't really believe the cat's evil, of course, but he's getting paid good money, so sure, he'll kill this cat for the old man, whatever. So in the story, this is where it differs and where I think the film is better. In the story, the hitman sits down on the couch. The cat comes up to him and he's like petting the cat and stuff. And while the old man is explaining to him this cat and what he needs to do, the hitman says, I'll just kill the cat right now. It's in his lap. He's petting it. And the old man is like, no, don't do that. You have to take it somewhere else, take it out of this house and then kill it. And it just didn't feel believable to me or convincing. It just did not seem realistic. It took me out of the story, kind of the way that it happened. And in the film, there's sort of a similar scene that happens where the cat is within his grasp and he might be able to kill it easily. But then the cat like attacks him and claws him and runs off. And to me, that makes more sense. The way it's handled in the film is just done a lot more in a convincing way, in my opinion. And there are just other things, little things throughout, little changes throughout. I think the film just has a way more effective, more entertaining version of the story. And then you also get a lot more blood and gore and things like that in the film version as well. And yeah, I absolutely love The Cat from Hell. It's great. If you know me, you know I love animal stories, even when they're portrayed in a negative light, when they are like the monsters or the villains of the story. I'm just drawn to animal stories, especially evil cat stories. They creep me out. So yeah, The Cat from Hell is my second favorite segment from this franchise, and I give it a perfect 5 out of 5 stars. All right, coming in at number 1, we also have a story segment from Tales from the Dark Side, and this is the last story segment. So even though, again, technically this isn't part of the same franchise as Creepshow, it's kind of like the unofficial Creepshow 3. They're very, very similar. Basically the same thing. And my number 1 pick is Lover's Vow, and that is the very last story segment from this film. So this movie really went out with a bang. And Lover's Vow, I don't even know how to talk about. It's kind of hard to talk about this one without spoiling anything. But this, oh man, I absolutely love this story segment. It's so great. It's basically about this guy who witnesses this gargoyle-like creature, is the best way I know how to describe it, kill this guy. And the gargoyle tells him that as long as he never tells anyone what happened, what he saw, then he'll spare his life. If this guy ever spills the beans, if he ever, tells people what he saw, then this gargoyle will come back and kill him too. So the guy there's a lot of like different things that happen in the story, a lot of time jumps, skips some years. And I don't want to go too much into detail. I'd rather you just watch it for yourself and see what this one's all about. Basically, this guy lives in fear the rest of his life. This event basically traumatized him. I think he wonders, he's not sure if it really happened or not, or if he's going crazy, and he feels like he has to tell someone about it. And there is a big twist that happens in this story segment. I mean a big twist, and it is great. I feel like the one twist in all of this franchise that is actually shocking, but it's also done in a way that's just so convincing, and it just pulls you right in, and it's got a little bit of an emotional punch to it, which you can't really say that about many of these other story segments, to be honest. This one has some emotional resonance in it, and it's also kind of scary, honestly. A lot of these story segments are more just for camp or schlock, just to be entertaining. They don't even really try to be scary. But this one is creepy. It's kind of dark. It's got some nice violence and gore in it as well. This one is just absolutely perfect to me. I absolutely love Lover's Vow. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. It's my favorite story segment out of this entire franchise, and it comes in at my #1 spot. So yeah, that's it, guys. That's my ranking of all of the story segments from Creepshow 1, 2, and Tales from the Dark Side. I think Tales from the Dark Side is probably my favorite just because of Cat from Hell and Lover's Vow. If I'm ranking just the individual movies themselves. And then next it would probably be Creepshow, just because it's got probably overall the strongest, and it's got the most story segments in it. And then Creepshow 2, I remember liking this one more when I was younger. I didn't like it as much this time around. Definitely my least favorite of the franchise. But I still enjoy the Raft, and Old Chief Woodenhead was okay. Hitchhiker, kind of But yeah, that's my ranking of the franchise, guys. Let me know down in the comments below if you've seen any of these movies. If you haven't, I highly recommend checking them out. If you have, let me know what your favorite story segments are or least favorite down in the comments below. And that's all I have for today, guys. So thanks for watching. Peace.